And I guess returning to the content of the Quran, there are a couple questions about what the Quran says about the abuse of power and the exploitation of labor and social welfare.
That's an excellent question, because that's how Islam started. Islam started as a social justice movement. Prophet Muhammad, he was a trustworthy businessman, but he was deeply troubled by the abuse of power in his community, in his society, the ethical, moral failures of the society. This is the genesis of how historically Islam was born. He was so troubled by so many abuses and injustices in his community, one of which, for example, injustices done to women. There was a very common practice of, how many of those who are female in the room are firstborn? Firstborn. So if you were to born pre-Islamic world in the 7th century Arabia, your father had to raise you until the age of 2-3 and had to bury you alive. Because having the first child, not son, having a daughter was such a source of disgrace in that community that in order to claim their honor and dignity, they had to kill their own daughters. Imagine the level of failure. I cannot imagine anything. My firstborn is the daughter as well. So it hits really home. Muhammad would go and beg these fathers. He kisses their feet, literally, saying, what did these innocent girls have done to you? Try to stop them. There was oppression of poor, widows. There was 1% enjoying the life, 99% oppressing. We know all these conversations well. So it was these troubles that pushed him to the caves of the mountains nearby Mecca. He would go and retire, says, this cannot be. He would ask for an answer. He would try to appeal. He was already somewhat monotheistic because he was an Ishmaelite. But many of the message of the Ishmael was forgotten. Abraham was forgotten then. It was his sincere cry to this abuse of power question that God responded back. The power that he has been crying and appealing and knocking the door and supplicating for many, many months prior to receiving the revelations of the Quran. And Muhammad was deeply troubled by injustices taking place in his community. And if you look what he has done after becoming a prophet, after becoming the messenger of God, everything that he institutionalized to make sure, we are talking about this first Islam right now, to make sure the power dynamics, the power control will not be in the hands of people who will abuse that power. But of course, it won't be too honest to draw a rosy picture. I can say and give an hour lecture about this, in the first category. But when it comes to Muslims, when it comes to history, where Muslims were able to uphold these Quranic values 100% and make a home run, there are times they have, there are times they didn't. If you want to, also interesting, in the, especially Sunni tradition, which is about 85 to 90% of the Muslims, if you look at how much they are anti-government, anti-power, the officialdom in Islam has always developed the Christian term. Are you familiar with the Christian term officialdom? The theology, the doctrine, everything developed outside of the government. When I read the Federalist Papers, the founding fathers, their distrust to government, I say, oh my, Jefferson was a Sunni Muslim. Like, he
yes, he was.
Yeah, he got it. He knew that the power corrupts, and therefore there should be an absolute mistrust to the power and the government. Because it comes from this tradition of saying power needs to be delegated, there should be division of labor and check balance, so that it won't be centralized, because it always yields to injustice and over control.
So would you like to